So when we talk about diversity, when we talk about inclusion, at Ather, we don't limit it to certain areas to say, okay, let's talk about gender diversity, let's talk about regional diversity, let's talk about kind of professionals we need diversity in that. What we really try and attempt is to go beyond all the symbolism, go beyond all the tokenism of what diversity and inclusion means. And when I say that, what I mean is the highest order of inclusion, the highest order of inclusivity is inclusivity of thoughts. Are we allowing space? Are we allowing freedom? Are we allowing people to speak what is there in their mind, right? And the whole evolution of our culture at Ather has been based on allowing the freedom to people to speak, listening to what they're speaking, and creating fundamentals of how we run the company, creating fundamentals of what kind of policies we bring in to ensure that we are listening to people and making our stories based on that, right? So one of the fundamental things that we started a few years back was a culture conversation, right? So we don't do surveys, we don't do associate surveys, we don't do employee survey, we do not ask people to rate where we stand. What we do is we have culture conversation. We ask people, can you speak and tell what do you feel? It's a very generic, open-ended discussion where we talk about people, how has been their experience, how has been the feeling, how do they see the company moving forward, what are the issues they face. We roughly talk to about 20% of the total population that we have in the company working, right? It's a huge effort that we take, and the reason we do it is it's very difficult to, to kind of understand what people speak and understand what people want to say only with the respect of numbers that you see on the screen, right? So culture conversations, if you look at what we say, and this is something which has helped us build the culture, and if you look at what the first culture conversation that we had was way back about 6 years back, and that is something which gave the culture narrative for us, what we call think as a species. Now if you look at how it's also crafted, right, it's very inclusive. It's not like 4 equal blocks that fit together. So we never believe that you need the same set of people. You need people who are equal but not the same. And that's what we talk about. When people who are equal but not the same come together is where you make a team, is how you move forward. So you talk about gender, you talk about region, you talk about skill sets. We say we need inclusivity in every aspect of those. And that is how we derive the next set of culture collective that we define. You take any of them, right? We talk about how do you pick up, let's say, be nice, irrespective of whether you're speaking to an engineer, irrespective of whether you're speaking to a workman, irrespective to whether you're speaking to a people coming from south versus north, irrespective of whether you're speaking to a woman or a man. You need to be nice. And if you look at it, it's not about being nice in a way that don't ask difficult questions. The question is not about not asking difficult questions. It is about listening. The moment you start listening to people, you're already behaving nice, because that's where the solution of problem starts, right? So we have gone through a lot of journey, and I'll tell you, when we have gone through that, it's not that we have not faced difficulties. So we have come a long way, but a long way to go. And I'll tell you, we have had failures. Right? Failures, why? The questions, for example, if you look at one of the recent culture conversations that we had last year, questions around are we as a company moving from a startup to a bigger company with 2,500 odd people now and aspiring to become even bigger, becoming too process oriented? Is the process killing the creativity? Right? So it's a question of, do we need to be process oriented or do we need to be, let's say, creative oriented, right? The question of, are we a manufacturing company or an engineering company? A lot of those questions indicate that we have our entire workforce, including all of us, are yet to understand what true inclusivity means. The question is not about are we a manufacturing organization or an engineering organization? The question is about and. We can be a manufacturing organization and an engineering organization. It's not about one cannot exist in the presence of the other. If you look at the whole design thinking, it talks about how do you put a process to innovation, right? So it's not that the moment you become process-oriented, you are not creative. You can be process-oriented as well as you can be creative. And that is what, when we reflect on, we say, hey, while we talk a lot about inclusion, while we talk a lot about diversity, while we talk a lot about how we respect every thought, these questions still keep coming about, are we this or that? And the whole attempt that we are making, if you look at over last couple of years, is to work with people, work with leadership, to say the narrative is not about or, the narrative is about and. We can be A and B. We can be diverse and strong. We can be process-oriented as well as creative. We can follow. I'll tell you one of the classic examples. I mean, a lot of people voiced in our last culture conversation, hey, you're talking about task values, what value system I showed before, think as a species, and one of the aspects I mentioned about be nice. Should we chase our targets or be nice? Again, the question that you don't understand, you can be nice and still chase targets. And that's the inclusion, that's the inclusivity of thought. And I'll tell you why we chose that. We say there are a lot of ways you can look at inclusion, there are a lot of ways you can look at diversity. And many of those initiatives, when you start from one aspect, okay, let's focus on gender diversity. Ather is my 5th company. I've seen enough companies attempting those projects, right? And it becomes a tokenism. You attempt to do that, you try to do that, you have your failures and say, hey, this project did not work, let's chuck this, let's start something else. The moment you start from a higher order of inclusion in thought, inclusivity in terms of thought, you listen to everyone. Why do we need to say, no, let's promote gender diversity? You listen to everyone. You respect everyone. You don't need to talk about, let's make it a diverse workforce from the perspective. No, you respect everyone. You listen to everyone. You don't need to say, hey, engineers are more valued in this company than HR professionals. No, you listen to everyone. And it's been a very painful journey. It's been a very long journey for us. But I'm very happy that the entire company leadership, including our people, respect this. They respect that we take so much pain in listening and understanding what lies. And we also are very open about accepting failure. Say, yes, these questions still keep coming. We have to work on them. And that's the journey we are on, to change the mindset from a question of or to an and. And in my opinion, in one line, if I have to say, our whole philosophy and our whole initiative on DEI is about how do we make it a question of and. It's not a competition between two thought processes. It's not a competition between two genders. It's not a competition between two different sets of people. Thank you so much.